Now, back to the story of some of the things he has said. He has said a lot about the initiatives that his government or his administration has tried to put in place for Nigerians in terms of food creation, in terms of job creation, and things like that. They're really, really great. He also spoke about the Lake Chad Basin Commission and how they're trying to reverse the effects of the shrinking size of the Lake Chad, and this is also great. But there's something that caught my attention, which is where he says these programs and many more have started yielding results, and if sustained, will transform the lives of millions of Nigerians. You see, that word or that phrase, and if sustained, is actually where Nigeria's biggest problem is, because we don't have a culture of sustaining things, neither do we have a culture of managing things properly. So now in 2019, if the president as he is now does not come in as the next president, we can have another administration come and shelf all these things he has done and also want to start their own programs. And that is one of the biggest problems we've had in Nigeria so far in regard to governance, which is continuity. We don't have it. Now, he has not said how he's going to ensure that there is continuity for these programs. He's just saying if they're sustained. I believe he should go beyond if they're sustained and try to put in place things that ensure that they will be sustained in the long run.
How do you ensure that an opposition political party who does come into power doesn't continue, or ensure that they do continue your work? Like, as you mentioned, that's a problem of the individuals, is it not, that occupy the offices?
Yes, because our governments have been driven solely by the individual, which is actually wrong. We should strengthen the institutions, not the individual. When we continue to work with the individual at play, when we continue to work with the individual being the strong person, and when we continue to have a government that is driven by an individual, we'll always have these problems. But when we strengthen our institutions, then our institutions are the ones that will take up these causes and will ensure that they run through. Because there are a lot of civil servants in this country that have seen not less than 4 or 5 head of states, that have come and gone, and they're still there. But you don't strengthen those civil servants. You don't strengthen the institutions that they represent. You strengthen the president. And because of that, we don't get sustainability. So that is what we need to focus on ASAP.
It'd be good to see our lawmakers focusing on that as well. But thank you very much for your analysis on that, Adedunmade. We keep it moving, though. Up next from the New Telegraph, Nigeria's poorest, richest, and most indebted states. So a report of the National Bureau of Statistics on the 36 states internally generated IGR revenue, that's our IGR, has unmasked the financial strengths and weaknesses of different states, putting them in the 3 categories mentioned. Now, Lagos State comes in the richest state with an IGR of about 333.96 billion, followed by Rivers, a distant second actually at 89.48 billion. We're looking at Yobe with the least internal revenue of 3.59 billion. Bauchi's right behind it with Kebbi, Ekiti, and Borno as well. Now again, Adedunmade, what's your take on this and looking at the state that the country's in?
Well, I'd like to congratulate Lagosians. At least you guys have the most of the money to start with, and also the governor as well. Yes, apparently he's doing a good job, and he's not letting up because he's still looking for more funds. He's still asking people to pay their tax, and he's still asking for land use charges, which means that the government is not slowing down in trying to raise more IGR, which is actually great. But when I first read the story, my concern was, where is my home state, Osun? Because we've had a lot of problems with our governor in the past with regard to how he has handled the state finance. And I was not surprised to see us just a little above the bottom, which is not so cool.
Other things that were very interesting to note, though, is that although Lagos does have such a massive IGR, it also has some of the highest debt portfolios.
Exactly.
And you look at Ogun State as well, also looking rather rich, one of the richest generating states when it comes to revenue, but they're burdened with incredible foreign debt as well.
Exactly, which was the second point I was going to raise, that the monies you see on paper is not actually getting to the people because there is so much debt that they have to offset. Now, look at a state like, should I say, the states, there are about 16 states that generate about 500 million naira monthly, and it is just 25, it is less than 25% of their annual wage bill. So all the monies they generate, no matter how much it is, they spend a lot of it, and even that is not enough just to pay salaries. So they have to borrow to do the other things. They have to borrow for infrastructure. They still have to borrow to pay salaries, including all the other things that they have to do, which I feel is really taking us back, because we have always contributed so high, but we have not done anything to reduce it in any way. Taking away goes
of Defense, and that is Lieutenant General Theophilus Danjuma, on the citizenry to defend themselves against, and I quote, ethnic cleansers. And now, when we look at this, there are a number of points to the article that raised cause for concern, which is what Madam Tanko was looking at. He said the allegation that the armed forces are colluding with armed bandits to perpetrate violence, that to say the government is not doing enough is one thing, but to say that the government is complicit in the killing of its own people is a completely different thing. Very loaded statement, very loaded stuff, and sometimes people would also look at the source of this. But what's your take on the story?
Well, what can I say? They should not protect themselves. They should just wait and be slaughtered. I think that's what some other people would rather have them do.
No, I don't. Carry on.
Okay, well, the truth is, the law recognizes your right to protect yourself. Even that's why there's the principle of self-defense. You know, so if someone attacks you, you have the right to protect yourself with the same measure of force that is being used to attack you. So if someone slaps you and you cut the person with a knife, that is not self-defense, because a slap and a knife stab are different degrees of violence. But if someone slaps you and you slap the person back, then that is self-defense. But if someone comes at you with a gun, what are you supposed to do? If you have a gun, you can shoot that person too.
We are not advocating violence on our
No, we are not advocating violence. I'm advocating self-defense.
I just have to clarify that. And I don't think anyone is saying no to self-defense. I think the concern is when, but again, looking at the statement, the part I read out, and looking at the story, we have to look at, in context of what we're talking about here.
Okay.
The concern for this particular elder statesman is that you are basically saying that your government is complicit in killing its own people, and that in itself is dangerous. When you take out and you make statements speaking specifically of ethnic cleansing, can you control where this rhetoric goes, and is it not reasonable to be concerned about such things?
Okay, with regard to that line of the story, I believe that you cannot just come and make such statements without having credible facts to back it up.
Because it can incite violence.
It can incite violence. So I would have suggested that if he was going to say that, he should have asked facts to back it up. He should have said, oh, this happened at this time, this happened at this time. And we can infer from these actions that the military is complicit here. But
Nigerian investors' plight worsens as MMM is at 62. So yesterday we got word that first the Russian businessman Sergei Mavrodi, whose MMM pyramid scheme deprived millions of Russians of their savings in the 1990 and in 2016, came to Nigeria, and a lot of people plunged into it. Most people, millions of Nigerians, lost money. And this time around, they say he was rushed to the hospital. According to Moskovsky Komsomolets, a Moscow-based newspaper, he complained of weakness and pain in his heart. He was called to the hospital statements. They could not save him, and he died hours after. The reactions on social media, on the papers, people who were interviewed on the road, it's mixed. Some people are saying, especially the Facebook page of the group, where one Dave Agwode threatened to ban any member that's spreading the death. Nigerians are still living in denial. Some other people are greeting the news as good news, really, saying that he came to Nigeria and then shortly he died. What's your take on this, Devoe?
Well, it was not written in the Russian newspaper that while they were trying to save his life, that the Ogun Otomoko, the Muti, was at work. You see, and it succeeded. Where, with funny as humorous as that sounds, we are very sad about the lives, the savings, the many Nigerians that had invested in MMM. Though it was not encouraged by the federal government, it was not encouraged by the fiscal sensitive, but MMM was a veritable tool in the hands of Nigerians, which was founded and introduced by Mavrodi. Now, Mavrodi had a history an unkind history of, as some would call it, financially defrauding people in many countries, especially
for which he was imprisoned at some point, and he came out again and started.
Where financial inequality was an issue. So in South Africa, in places in Asia, in China, in Ghana, some places were thrown out, some places succeeded. What in the Americas and maybe in parts of Europe, it didn't really go too far. But there's so many reactions, many of people who still had hope and a sense that there would be a resurrection of their earnings to earn their, how did they call it those days, PT or P, that they would get PH back and find lost hope. Well, some have said that the payment will still come through cryptocurrency. Some have said that they should still they should follow them to the spirit world. Some have said, well, don't come to Nigeria and mess with us anymore. Our Muti, our Ogun, our Otomokbo is very powerful. You don't mess with us, take our money, and think you can go away scot-free.
All right. I've got a couple of messages to read out. Skewering Obama's. While we've got this going on WhatsApp, Nick from Apapa says, as far as I know, the general hasn't said anything new. Fayoshe has specifically accused this government of being complicit in killings in the past, and not one herdsman has been prosecuted for these killings. Folu, what would you suggest? Again, it's not true that no one's been picked up. Some people have been, but who are they really? And the only thing I advocate for is just fair and balanced reviewing. All state of war or emergency, I really are not defending themselves because the federal government said not to. Let's be frank. It's equivalent to saying that because the Pope has said don't use contraception, that all Catholics are not using it.
That's a good analogy to look at it from. All right, Tribune, it's a stretch really. We'll look at the other stories now from Tribune. This next one here says, Lassa fever outbreak. The World Health Organization releases $900,000 for emergencies and quick response. They've released this funds through the Contingency Fund for Emergencies and Quick Response, stressing it has recognized Lassa fever as a priority and has a potential to cause public health emergencies. Devoe, let's go into this.
Well, here once again, we're having the input of some of these foreign multilateral bodies who are coming to our assistance. The Lassa fever outbreak, it's been frequent at different points in time. And I think here it is spreading unlike before. But the quick response equipment that's coming from WHO, which is supposed to be released to Nigerian Center of Disease Control, has and will help the decline. So that as the weeks go by, especially with the ending of the dry season, its effect would have reduced. Now, you do know awareness is going on so that people are aware of how to address the matter. Sorry, not address it. First of all, detect it and then know the actions to take.
Cases, yes.
And how to treat those who are affected. And even in the hospitals who have been identified as treatment centers, they have the requisite equipment to be able to treat this matter. Unfortunately, it's not been dealt with completely, but we're hoping that with this aid, and especially more to come, that we'll be able to minimize it to a bare minimum. Because as it is, Nigeria has the largest number of reported cases on record at the moment. So hopefully this should bring a downward trend until it's completely eradicated.
Thank you very much. This next story, the last story actually that we're looking at today on Freshly Pressed, Punch, is from the Punch newspaper. LASG, the Lagos State government, has ordered the immediate closure of the Vesa fisheries on
in that 1 or 2 time dump. I don't think that is what will actually have resulted in all those smoke and all those fumes that came out. I believe that there's so much more that was in that place and that burned, and we cannot just blame it all on
one person.
Yes.
So hopefully the investigations reveal more people who are part of this. So in wrapping up, today we'll take a look at some of the messages.
Yes, indeed. This is in from Moduka, who said, I'm not sure that I understand this story on Lagos State's building permits. Why waive the title documents? Why not speed up the time to process title documents as well? At the moment, title documents can take up to a year to regularize. So why approve buildings without title and then encourage? We've got this in from Osa, from Abulegba, who says, Nigerians are channeling their anger at the wrong person. How come the Tomoko can only kill Mavrodi and not all those who have stolen our money and are still alive? Let them rechannel their Ojuju. Mind you, none of this money was paid to the man's account. And on that note, we're done.
Yes, we're done, Legals. Thank you very much. Coming up next at 8:15 is Grapevine on Smooth 91 FM.
The headlines.
Where else will you be?
The
Thanks for watching.
The news.
Yeah, we're on YouTube now.
Yes, I wanted to say something about that. I tried watching it one day.
Yeah.